Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, all of you, including folks online. We have several who are attending online. Um, it's a great pleasure and privilege for me to welcome Professor Elena Lasos Chavero, who's a visiting scholar at ITRI and is visiting India as a whole during her sabbatical year. She spent time at Shivanada University earlier and is now with us. It's a real privilege, Elena, to have you with us. Thank you. It would take me a long time to introduce Elena. Elena has a very accomplished CV, and I'm sure all of you can find bits and pieces of it online. I've often introduced her as a rural sociologist, and she has corrected me saying, no, anthropology. And I wanted to respond, which I will respond now, which is that in India, we tend not to identify ourselves as anthropologists.
Okay.
Because anthropology is seen as a colonial construct, a colonial discipline to study the other. So a lot of sociologists in India say they use anthropological methods, so they do social anthropology. And so whereas in the US, as you know, there's a very sharp divide between the anthropology community and the sociology community, but not so here. But for the sake of completeness, Elena is a professor at UNAM, the largest university in Mexico. She's a professor, researcher at the Institute of Social Sciences. So they have a dual affiliation between the institute where the research happens and multiple departments where she's affiliated as a teaching professor, including not just anthropology and but also sustainability studies, if I'm not mistaken, the one in Morelia. So she teaches across a multiple set of departments. And if you look at her CV itself, like many of us, she's highly interdisciplinary, starting in the discipline of biology for her undergrad, and then moving into anthropology and social sciences more generally, with a PhD from EHESS, Paris in France. And I will not try to pronounce the full name of that institute. I will only mangle it completely. But it is a very renowned institute in Paris where she got a PhD from, and then has continued to work at UNAM and multiple other institutes as a lecturer, visiting professor, including ETH Zurich, which many of us know. We have had links with ETH Zurich in the past, University of Zurich itself, and recently at Oxford, she's been affiliated as a visiting faculty. And it's been a real privilege to have you here with us, Elena. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In terms of her interests, it is broadly political ecology around the conservation of agrodiversity and food sovereignty, perceptions and impacts on transgenic maize, gender and rural development, vulnerability to climate change, culture and power around the conservation of natural resources. So this is a very brief introduction. And without further ado, over to Elena.
Thank you very much. I don't need that, no? Thank you very much for that friendly introduction.
I should add just one more thing. I know Elena more as a person that I got introduced over dinner in Oaxaca in Mexico and went dancing with in Mexico City.
And he said that it was the first time that he was dancing. Well, thank you very much for being here. It is a privilege for me to be here and be part of A3, for 1 month. But I am really, really excited to meet you and to have an exchange. And also thank you very much for all the people that are online. I appreciate it very much. And I hope that we can continue, if not in this moment, but that we can continue a long exchange of experiences. And I think it will be very, very fruitful. And yeah, I have many, many things to learn from India. And in that sense, what we thought, and I was talking with some of you at last week, and I am going to present a very broad historical perspective from the agro-food transformations or agro-food territories in Mexico, in the sense to find where are the breaches or where are the possible breaches to communicate with India's also agro-food transformations. So it is not exactly my research. It is, of course, it's part sometimes of the results of my research, but I have other projects and that are much more like focusing some questions, are more theoretical, but also practical. And we do a lot of transdisciplinary work with many communities in Mexico. So here it is only like to give a broad panorama. So from there we can have like a common knowledge of what is happening in Mexico, and then afterwards we can find these common bridges. So I will give this historical background about land tenure, agro-food regimes, food governance, some data about the population of Mexico, the transnational corporations, and that has been changing the agro-food regimes, the milpas that are, it's cornfields in Mexico that they are intercropping system, but they are facing a very big agrobiodiversity loss, and they are in agricultural crisis, but some alternative pathways and food justice and food sovereignty. So I will start with a phrase that it was very famous, and it is poor Mexico, so far from God and so close to the United States. And that's the reality. We are too near the United States. And only to give you like a short thing about 19th century, we lost 55% of our territory and went to the United States. No, so it was part of all California, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, part of Arizona, Colorado. That was part of Mexico. But only also to remind you about a fact of Mexican Revolution. It was one of the first revolutions in 20th century, with the Russian Revolution, and it was for land reform. It was really coming from the farmers that they were demanding a land reform or a land distribution. So it was after the Mexican Revolution, it was a very slow process of the distribution of land. There continued the peasant struggles demanding the land. And then finally, little by little, it started to figure, this social land tenure that we call ejido, that comes from the Spanish people. And it means that it is a collective way of managing the lands. But the owners are not the peasants, it's the state, and the farmers can have access. And at the beginning, it was only the male farmers that could have access to it, but they couldn't sell it nor lease it. Now we will see that it is totally different, but it was like that after issue from the Mexican Revolution. There was a president in 1936, Cárdenas, that he distributed 40% of the land, and he was the one that during that period that was much more distributed. So the land tenure, we have communal land that it is more likely among indigenous populations, the ejidos, private property, and the federal property. So also in these years, in the 40s, 50s, it started all the development plans, in the sense of a lot of growth, productivism. So now if farmers have already access to land, then Cárdenas himself, he was promoting credits, technology, infrastructure, educations, and access to a market, because he said it's not enough the land, but we have to have all this, only to give you an idea, there are 68 indigenous peoples, but also Cárdenas had very positive things and very negative things. And one of his negative things, it was that he was pushing very much what we call it in Spanish, mestización. This is to become a mestizo. This is to really erase your indigenous background. So it was very strong in that moment. All the schools were implemented in order to forget your own language and to speak only Spanish. And there was a lot of rural institutionalization. So then, there was a co-option of the peasants' movements through the Rural Bank, through the Ministry of Agriculture, but also from the institutionalized peasants or farmers' organizations. It was the time of the industrialization and urbanization. The first natural protected areas were since 1917, but the majority of the protected areas in Mexico were declared during the 80s and 90s. And then, of course, the Green Revolution that make an after and a beginning with the Rockefeller Foundation in Mexico in 1950. So if we follow the literature of Michael and Friedman, they are talking about food regimes. First regime that it's more UK that was leading it. In the second food regime is the US control over the food and agri-food territories. So for the US, it was very important, all these flows of surplus, food, in the sense to have these food aid programs that could then afterwards be used as a geopolitical weapon. And they were subsidizing manufacturing wages, but it was in the exchange that the Latin American countries will be securing anti-communist loyalty to the United States. So we will be seeing all in Central America, South America, the presence of the US companies. One of the most famous ones was United Fruit Company, that it was all in Central America, but also Chiquita with the bananas, etc. So the agro-industrialization began with the Green Revolution in a very drastic way. There were a lot of experiences, there were a lot of institutions that were ready to launch all the industrialization of the agriculture. And the agribusiness was not there, in the sense of there were already Cargill, that was from 19th century, but when it started, the Green Revolution, they were there, Cargill, Monsanto, and the big transnational, and also all the transnational animal protein complex that was pushed by the United States. And one point that it was important, it is to see that the food was not converted as a commodity complex. So what we have always been discussing in Mexico among anthropologists, that in Mexico is the contrary than here, because we saw anthropologists as a contested part of the social scientists, and because the sociologists are very structured and follow, and the Mexican School of Anthropology is very famous for being a very contested leftist Marxist school, Only it's apart from that, of the comment that Sharad made before. But what we will see, it is the development of the meat protein, There was a power, meat power, in the sense that there were a lot of credits flowing to implement the cattle raising by World Bank, by the Inter-American Bank of Development, provoking the high rates of deforestation. So what we will see in the 1960s, 1970s, the high rates of deforestation started from that because of the introduction of cattle raising, and it was implemented by all these credits that were flowing from World Bank and Inter-American Bank of Development. And this was very much related with McDonald's and with the burgerization of meat in the United States. So many questions can arise from this discussion. First, how food is mobilized in the global market in these periods, which are the social and environmental vulnerabilities provoked by all these transformations, which are the menaces and risks that are provoked by the restructuring of the global food system. So it is like not to separate the environmental problems from the agricultural problems. We have to see them very, very related, because they are like that. If the deforestation was going more and more, it was because of this coming of the cattle raising, that it was a need for the United States to supply their meat market. So what we will see in this period, that the food was very cheaply produced, in the interest of the development of capital, of the capitalism and power accumulation. We will see that the WTO will be making all the rules of how, when, how to export, what to import, and all this power was legitimized by the ideology, the free trade that will bring us less poverty, we will be with better justice and equity, and of course the development aid that was always as this geopolitical weapon. And we will see that transnational agri-food corporations, they were there since the beginning, controlling machinery, controlling seeds, controlling the fertilizers, controlling the agrochemicals. But then afterwards, in the third food regime of what Friedman and McMichael call, it is the dominion or the control of the supermarket revolution. This is not only the big corporations, but also the supermarket revolution. This is all the big retailers, And since then, we have the presence, for example, of Walmart and companies, no, also of Tesco, no, from UK, or Carrefour from France, no, that they will be really, no, making a revolution as the supermarket. But also in this period in the 80s, what also you will be having here in India is the structural adjustment programs. This is no credits anymore for the farmers, no subsidized. The price was controlled by the WTO. And no, only the North could subsidize the food surpluses, no, and that we signed the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement in 1992 with Canada and the United States, and unfortunately, fortunately for once, it was that the maize took part of the negotiations, no, was part of the negotiations. So the WTO intensified all the liberalization rules. And what it was, the aim of this, it was we have to displace all these inefficient farmers that are there, no, they are really as a surplus, and that it was provoke and generate all the migrations that were then afterwards going to the United States. And it was deepen all these processes of new region into animal protein chains. In 1994, as we were preparing, no, for the NAFTA, or as after the NAFTA, but it was we have to give like credibility and legitimacy for all the companies that were coming from the United States to Mexico. There was the declaration of the end of the land reform in 1994 and the starting of the privatization of land. This is the ejido is not anymore, although it is there in the paper, but all the ejidatarios, or the persons that are belonging to the ejido, now they have their own land. Now they are the owners of their land as private land, no? And this had like positive and negative consequences. Positive in the sense that they could sell it, but that is also the negative part, no? Because now, if of course they are in poverty or they need to sell it because of health issues, no, then they will sell it. They will, no, and then afterwards it will be more and more big landowners that are accumulating land. So this land grabbing was not as fast as some people were thinking. No, some scholars were thinking it was a very slow process, but we have it. No, we have it that it is more and more with in big landowners. In these years, the deforestation continued very strong. No, the biodiversity loss, agrobiodiversity loss, erosion, pollution of rivers, and a lot of creation of socio-environmental vulnerabilities. In the sense of no monocultures, they were taking more and more place into the agricultural land, and that was causing no the pollution of the rivers, desalinization of soils, as you know, and a lot of no socio-environmental vulnerabilities. And in this third regime, what it is one of the characteristics, it is that it's the subordination of the national states to the markets. This is no many times who is deciding or who are deciding the transnational corporations in Mexico and in many of the Latin American countries, of course. So what we have, it will be the typical thing that of deforestation, that we will have the surface, the green line, it is showing us the loss of rainforest, and the orange one, the orange line will be more and more in monocultures and more in agricultural. And in the right side, it is a diagram that National Geographic made for Latin America. And what we see, it is all the varieties that have been lost, and the lower part, what you see, it is only the varieties that are being left, but from 400, 500, 300, we have 28, 32, 20. So it's really a big agrobiodiversity, or it is a very severe agrobiodiversity loss. Some of the population data, well, this is the Mexican population growth. As like in many of the developing countries in the 60s, 70s, and 90s, it was the boom, so it was really the very strong for, and then afterwards it was the demographic transition. And what we see, it is a descent of the annual growth, from the 90s, 95, that it is going down until 1.3, 1.2. So totally we have 136 million people in 2024. And some of the data will have population demographics. It will be, well, the density that perhaps it is interesting, no, 66 persons per kilometer carré. No, carré. Well, square meter, square kilometer. With this birth rate, death rate, no life expectancy of 74 years. So, well, these are some of the data. And if you see, no, how it is the behavior of the curve, well, it is in the second demographic transition. And some of the descent or diminishment of the population, rural population. So from 1960, we will have like 57% of the population were inhabiting the rural areas. And by 2020, it's only 21%. From that, we have 50% of indigenous population, that it's around 23 million. But from these 23 million, only 30% will be speaking their own indigenous languages. No, so then we see that there is a severe loss of their own languages, and this means also a lot of this loss of the relationships with nature, this loss of identity, territorial identities. Is not only the loss of their own language, but what it's culturally the meaning about the loss of their own language. Also, what we have some data, it is that indigenous people continue to be the poorest of the rural inhabitants, although many of the indigenous populations are also basculating between the urban and the rural. What we see, it is around 88.5 in really poverty from the indigenous population. And what some data are saying, I couldn't translate it in English, but here what we have in this part, it's the indigenous women that are in rural zones, and these are non-indigenous men that are in urban zones, and that is the population that it is in poverty. This will be in extreme poverty, and this will be in moderate poverty. So in total, we are speaking about 79% of women that are living in the rural parts, with living in poverty, and 35% of men that are living in the urban parts in poverty. So then we see the big disparities and the big inequalities more and more. It is always they are talking about alleviation of poverty and programs for indigenous populations, but we continue with big gaps and big inequalities. And about our diets, what then we have also, it is a bifurcated, what I call it like class diets, is a sense of high caloric food. It is being consumed by poor people, and organic food, organically produced by rich elites. So now what we have, it is two big, what we call it, the neoliberal sicknesses, that it's obesity and diabetes. We are consuming a lot of ultra processed food. It is 212 kilos per capita per year. That will mean around 23% of the food energy is coming from ultra processed food. And what we have in the expenses of ultra processed food is 39% of the expense, of the total expense in food, will be for ultra processed food. And it has been growing. In 2020, what we have, it is 47% being expended in ultra processed food. And we have both things. We have this is the world hunger continues, but still what we have in Mexico, it's 12% of the population with nutritional deficiency, and 47% of the households still with difficulties to have access to food. And these are data of 2022. And at the same time, what we have, it's an overweight and obesity in children, in population that it is from 5 to 11 years old. And what we see, it has been growing. It is 37% of the population, of children's population, it's with problems with obesity already. The adult, it is even worse. It is up to 40%. 42, 41, for it depends in rural or urban, or it depends in women or men. So what we have then, that's the dominion and the control of these biotech and agricultural corporations, the agrochemical, the food corporations more and more, no? Of course, Nestlé, as you have it already also here, Del Monte also, Conagra, Unilever, and the food retailers, no, as I have said. You will be knowing perfectly well, even you, no? When I was asking for coffee, they gave me this, no? So you will be used to having, no, be consuming Nestle or La Vista, no, instead of really grain coffees directly from the farmers, no? So that is a process also in Mexico. Now it has changed very much with coffee, no? Now we are big producers of coffee, so we are really having coffee. But then you see, how many millions do they make, and of course, it is much more than the budget for education in Mexico, but also for governmental programs. No, so if we compare the economic, financial revolve, we see that it's bigger, no, than the budget for all the Mexican government. But also then what we have here, it is, well, Coca-Cola has been making a big business, no? We are consuming 163 liters per capita per year, no? That was a data of 2014, but perhaps it is more even now. 70% of children having breakfast with Coca-Cola, no? 73% of the population consuming it regular the sodas, no? So why they function so well, no, the transnational corporations? Because they are controlling not only the technical package, no, not giving only the agrochemicals, but they are giving the technical assistance or the attendance, no? They have a lot of young people that are just recently graduated from the agricultural sciences. They pay them and then they distribute their products through them, no? So then they give to each farmer, no, this technical attendance, but also they give credits, no? And now the government, of course, they don't have any program to give credits for the agriculture, for the farmers, and they are controlling the transport of the grains, they are controlling the warehouses, and of course, they are controlling the markets. What we see now, it is all the negotiations with the prices. Maseca is always there, that is a big Mexican transnational, but also it's Cargill there, Monsanto is there in the negotiations, and we say, what are they doing there in these negotiations, no? So they control the glyphosate system, no? Control the markets of seed, fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides. We see more and more, no, that they controlling 30%, 40%, 50% of the seeds, no? And they are involved, no, from the farm to the fork. And the strongest stakeholders in this, no, are designing then the food futures and finally our landscapes, no, our territorial and our territories and our landscapes. So only to give an idea, though, Syngenta, well, they have more than 37,000 employees. It's present in 90 countries, no, and it was with different names, no, first Geigy, Seva, AstraZeneca, Novartis, and now, no, Syngenta. Conagra, the same thing, no, and controlling different type of sorts of many products, no? And now, of course, no, if they can change their politics, yes, no, through greenwashing, through sustainable development, no, everything is sustainable development with Monsanto and with all these companies, no, even they got the World Food Prize, Monsanto, no, or the world's best multinational workplace, no. And of course, no, when we go to their webpage, they are announced as a sustainable agricultural company, no, and we support the farmers of all over the world, no. So then this is the discourse, of course, and then afterwards, no, it is what it permeates among our own politicians, no, and then it is very difficult to have all these demands of the farmers trying to protect their seeds, trying to protect their lands, no, because the companies are selling themselves as, no, we're following sustainable development. And even, no, there have been a lot of patents, no, of the genetical resources of Mexico, but even the names, no? Because if I would be seeing this, I would have thought, well, it is a tomato that it's grown among the Maya. No, they are calling their own product jitomate Maya, no? Or the jalapeno chichimeca, that also it was a name of indigenous populations, no? So these are all in the hands of Seminis, that it is a subsidiary of Monsanto, no? And then, of course, now in this the 90s, no, we have these agro-food fractures, but the most fracture that it was in 2007. I think also here, no, it was seen as that 2007, 2008, as it was in all, no, the world, that had a lot of transformations of the agro-food because of the rise of the prices of the basic grains. So in Mexico, it was the same thing. And then afterwards that, it was more controlled by the transnational corporations. And for the government, the food production itself was not anymore a development strategy. No, it started to lose importance in the development programs, no, because they were not generating foreign exchange. They were not very visible in the market stocks. So then, of course, then more and more power goes to the transnational corporations with no new hegemonic political groups. And one of the effects, for example, well, we are the people of maize, no, in Mexico, and we eat a lot of tortillas that they are resembling like rotis, no, here. But if before, no, in 1960, 36.8% coming, the energy was coming from the tortilla, and 32% of the protein was coming from the tortilla. What we see in 1995, it's really very, very drastic reduction, no? And that will be the strategies of the industry that are replacing more and more all these natural food, or how the processing of the maize into industrialized ones. And even though there are the flour of maize, that it is not following all the process that was traditional maize. And then afterwards, what we have, it is a lack of calcium, that before in the traditional way, we were adding a lot of calcium, and that was the most important source of calcium for not only indigenous people, but for rural and for all Mexican. And what we see then also, no, it is here the food poverty in Mexico. This is only of about food poverty, and we see a very big contradiction, no, because we say all these indigenous populations that are conserving a lot of their agrobiodiversity, or they are doing the milpas. But what we see, the food poverty, they are in the majority, no, they're 34% of the population, no, still in 2022, no, with the highest food poverty, no, highest than in the rural, and of course highest than the population that is living in the urban parts. And well, only to have an idea, no, maize in Mexico is not only food, no, it's ritual, it's symbolic, it forms part of the identity, it is reproduced by legends, by all the, how it was the origin. So there are, or each indigenous population have, no, a myth of creation of maize and humans, no, and so maize is part as a human, and humans are also part of maize because we are made out of maize, no. So then it is a very intrinsic cultural identity between the maize and the humans. And also, no, it is a way of exchanging everything. No, if before it was, I give you a little bit of maize, you give me a little bit that. So it was always this way of exchange. But no, as you see here, no, in red, I only put the flag, no, in the sense of we were importing only 253,000 tons in 1993 of maize, and this is the big thing about 6 million. No, it is not only the double or the triple. It is wow. No, so what happened here? Well, it is after the NAFTA, after the structural adjustment programs, after all the credits that were gone, and that the control of the price was being made by the Chicago stock, no market stock. So then what we see, it is every time more imports of maize in Mexico, no? And then afterwards, what we analyzing it, it is much more the yellow maize, and the yellow maize, it is more for cattle and for the industry, no? So in general, to have an idea, 50% of our territory is dedicated to grazelands, not still to pasture lands for livestock. 22 or 25% of the agricultural territory dedicated to maize, so it's around 7 million hectares dedicated to the maize. And the maize production in 2021 was 27 million, no? That is represents the 80% of the grain production in Mexico. So only that you have like a general panorama of why we are always speaking about maize, no? Now, if we think about the agri-food territories, when we were making some studies, different researchers, no, what we were comparing was in 1960 to the 1990, no, how much of your agriculture production will represent for the food system of those communities, no? And more or less, it depends on the region, it depends on the study, no? But what we have, it is that it was between 60 to 80% of their own agriculture production was, no, the source of their food consumption. And mainly it were these milpas, no, that is these cornfields with maize and many associated crops, no, it's an intercropping system, but also from wheat, also from the paddies, the home gardens that they were very rich in many products, no, the coffee agroforestry systems, no, also livestock, it was important, the cattle, in small parts that they were only having 2-3 cows as here, no, the poultry also having 10, 8, no, for each for a family, no, the pigs 3, 4. It was like more in a very small proportions, but it was important for each family to be keeping, no, the balance between the agriculture and the livestock. They were making a lot of gathering, no, from the forest and the secondary forest, no, so very many wild plants will be part of their food systems, no. And of course, there were always a market, no, that it was paid by remittances or by the aid programs, no, but that was more or less between 20 and 40% of their that represent, no. But no, from the 90s to on, the agriculture production has been very much reduced, no, and it depends again on the region and also of the researcher that has made the study, but more or less what we have been discussing, it is sometimes it only represents 20%. This is 20% of their food, no, it's coming from their own agricultural production, and the rest is coming from the market. And this is what it makes the big difference between food security and food sovereignty, no, because they can be secure in their food through the market, no, and if they have the money, no, to have access to it through the remittances or aid programs, or now, no, the tourism services or handicrafts, but no, from the agricultural production, there has been very severe, no, reduction. And also the gathering, it has been also reduced, and also the livestock has been very, very much reduced, no? Many times almost it disappears, the poultry is almost not there, pigs also disappear, the sheep in very, very small proportion, because now it is all the production, it is industrialized, or it is the big industries that are controlling the animal or the livestock production. So before we were talking about a very high heterogeneous agrobiodiversity, with a lot of species of chili or of beans, of squashes, but also of fungi. People were eating a lot of different quality types of fungi, of insects, of different products of gardens. So that will be the basic, of the staple crops, and the basic of the food. With 64 maize land races all over Mexico. But now, as I was showing you before, what we calculate, it is like some studies that has been made by regions, but we don't have like a general, no, calculation of the loss of agrodiversity. It's only because of the researchers that we have been making in this part, so we calculate this, but perhaps it is more, perhaps it is less, but that is why it's a big range of 60 to 80% of our biodiversity has been lost. So then what we have to be really working on it is how the decisions making about all these worldviews, what does it mean to maintain the agrobiodiversity, why it would be so important to maintain it, that it's not only for the health of the people, but also for the health of the ecosystems. We know very well that it's a bigger or a big genetic heterogeneity. It will be better for climate change, it will be better for adaptation or for mitigation also, and in that sense, the loss of agrobiodiversity means not only that it is bad for their health, because now they are depending more in only some products or in the ultra-processed food, but also they are losing a lot of knowledge of how to cultivate all this intercropping of the complexity of the systems of the intercropping or rotation processes, or all the interrelationships among the cultivated and the wild species, but also we are losing all the worldviews of how indigenous or rural people, farmers, were visualizing what is the agriculture, what is food, what is health for ecosystem, but also health for people. So we are working very much in all this food governance, in the sense of how to really empower social and local institutions in a formal or informal way, but how they can start to recover their not only their agrobiodiversity, but also the health of their soils, the health of the water, and for the well-being, and to be working on equity and food justice. So what we see, it is some of the alternatives, and that gives us hope, in the sense of not everything is so bad. There are communities, that have been working on recovering their agrobiodiversity and their maize land races, as Zapatistas have been making in their own communities, and they have been trying to really also involve children, since they are very little, in the importance of the maintenance of their agrobiodiversity and of their maize land races. And then have been some of the community projects that they are only working in their, not only in their socio-ecological parts, but also how to do it socioeconomic, and have also winning gains from that, but also of how to strengthen or foster their cultural identity through recovering this agrobiodiversity, to have these links again for the land and for the protection of their territories. And of course, what we have to look always, it's the political issues of who wants the contrary, and of course the power of the big transnationals and also Mexican transnationals now, that are trying really to undermine all these alternative experiences. So what we have been working, it is to work very much in the collective culture, of how try to, before the indigenous people were always in this collective labor, it was broken, or there's a fracture on that. So now again, how to really start again to recover all these institutions, arrangement of collective work or collective culture in constructing these synergies, about exchanges of knowledges. So we are working very much in peasant to peasant or farmer to farmer exchanges, so then, really we can bring the farmers' decision making again into their lands, into their territories. And of course, what you know about the food sovereignty, it has been very much discussed. It was a political concept that was designed or discussed by Via Campesina when they were in Mexico. No, there were many associations and they came with this concept. And what it is important, it is that they, or the farmers again, they can define their own food and agricultural systems. And that we can write it, we can say it, but that means a lot of transformations in many ways, not only in the food, no, or the agricultural systems, but it is in their own culture, in their own management of their territories, in what is the access to their forest, the access to water. And that has to be, again, be negotiated and bring into the discussion of the communities. And well, it was also that they are also talking about food autonomy, in the sense of how to manage their own lands, territory, seeds, biodiversity, that they have to be in the hands of those who produce the food and not in the corporate sector. And with this, we have a transnationalism of activism. They have been very much in touch, many of the farmers' organizations around the world. Many of the Indian also organizations have been communicated with the Mexican farmers, but also with the Latin American farmers, with the European farmers that want really to be in this activism, to recovering and to be managing their own agricultural territories. And of course, this has not been like done or given. No, it has been struggle. There are many land struggles, many peasant struggles, many farmer struggles that have been occurring. This has been in 2004, soberanía alimentaria con maíz y frijol, that these are a big movement that was in 2010. Afterwards, El Campo no aguanta más, it was just before. Sin maíz no hay país, it's a campaign that has been created since 2000, 2002, and it continues, to be agglutinating and discussing all these issues with a lot of farmers organizations. So thank you very much. I hope that you have many questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So the floor is open for questions. We'll also monitor is there a question online? So I'll just request anybody online, if they have questions, to drop them in the Q&A box. Thank you.
Yeah, Elena, thank you very much for your talk. I have a question which is maybe a little bit applied, is like in this kind of giant struggle between TNC and then the farmers movement or local movements and so on. How do you see factors that can actually change a little bit the situation or change this power relation, that would give a step?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that after, that when there was a big discussion about the GMO maize in 2002, and there was a publication of Nacho Chapela, and there was a lot of discussion about GMO maize, and that brought a very big awareness among the Mexican consumers and the Mexican farmers of what have we been losing, in the sense of not only these maize land races, but also agrobiodiversity. So I think more and more Mexican young people are also aware of these and the dangers. So then they are trying to make it different. So what we have now, it is like, quite a lot of small experiences that they communicate among them, and that we try that consumers will be brought into the discussions and reflections. But of course, we have, in the mean that the government doesn't have like more taxes, for example, for the ultra processed food, that it's so cheap, then to be competing with prices, it's very unloyal, or then it is very unfair about it, because of course, if you have something that will give you calories and it is much more cheaper than vegetables or fruits, then of course you will be going for the cheaper part. So what we need to do is to be enforcing different type of laws for the government, and to say you have to tax more the ultra processed. So there have been movement to tax more Coca-Cola, but of course Coca-Cola controls many things, no, not only Coca-Cola, no. So then what we have been doing it is to really be demanding that there have to be more taxes to Coca-Cola, and that in that sense it will be cheaper to buy a bottle of water than a bottle of Coca-Cola, because now it is cheaper to buy a bottle of Coca-Cola than a bottle of water, no. So in that sense, we have to make pressure and to make a lot of struggles. So, but more and more, there has been a little consciousness, awareness, and it has been growing, no? And I think that there was a change from 2000 now, no? And I feel it in many cities, not only Mexico City, or that consumers are much more careful of what they are consuming, and then saying, yes, we have to be consuming what our farmers are producing, and to help the producers and to help the local farmers. So more and more you can have these type of markets, as for example the ones of Paris, of the ones of that they are near Paris, no. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle, of course.
Thanks for the nice presentation. A generic question in many of these contexts is, what about the food security? Means there is always an understanding that if you go for traditional or agro biodiverse systems, the production won't be as good as we see in the monoculture or whatnot. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there has been a lot of research about that, because to really have counter arguments for that, no? Because it depends how are you measuring. If you are measuring, of course, only maize, they will be more productive when they are in monoculture, no? And they are the high yield varieties, no? But if we measure all what it was produced in the milpa, there it's not only maize, but it is also beans and also squashes and like 32 other associated crops. And when you see what are the results with the soil and what is the result with the water, then afterwards, if we really make calculations, economic calculations, no, of really what is the water costing, the soil, no, pollution costing. If we will be introducing all that, it will be higher, the one of monoculture. And that has been done, no, already. If they put the price to the water, if they put a price to the salinization of the soil and how to desalinize it, for example, or then, no, you will be having a more productive at the end, no, for the environment and for people into the milpa system, for example, in the high variety type of agricultural systems, no. But this has to be really very much discussed with, of course, the green revolution defenders, no, that they are always saying, no, having the arguments of productivity. And of course, when you compare it from the north to the south of Mexico, in the north, they have productivity of 16, 17, 18 tons per hectare, no, as the Iowa belt, corn belt, no. So they're having more equivalent yields. But so they are saying, oh, the poor traditional landraces with 3-4 tons per hectare, what are they doing with that? No, they are. But when we see how much it's being produced, it is 30% by the big landowners, and it is 70% produced by the small landowners. So you say, well, then what we see it is, a larger production even by the small landowners, no? And the cost of water and pollution are not being considered, no? And now, for example, with the droughts, no, and that they are having a lot of difficulties, now they are not having, no, the 16, 70 tons per hectare, and now they are saying, oh, no, we are losing, we have only 8, only 9, only 10, and they were saying, okay, and the other ones that are more resistant to stress, no, water stress, or then we can see that they continue to have lower yields if they are in very much stress, water stress, but still, no, they are producing for the farmers enough to make their own living, no. So it has to be very much discussed, but it is a very a complex thing, and many of the environmental economists have been doing that type of studies, no.
There's a question online from Seema Purushothaman. A rare variety of corn, Sierra Mixe from the Oaxaca, has been reported by TNCs as the holy grail of agriculture and nutrition poverty. Does this corn have some traction in the discourses in Mexico?
I didn't understand. The what? The which?
A rare variety of corn called Sierra Mixe. M-I-X-E.
Sierra Mije. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Sierra Mije what?
It has been reported by TNCs as the holy grail of agricultural and nutrition poverty.
Yeah.
Does this corn have some traction in the discourses in Mexico?
Yeah. Yes, it has been much discussed about this variety, no, that it is in thank you. In Oaxaca, no, and that it has been found that it has more it's being more nutritious. But then again, no, there has been some risks that the transnationals will be patenting those seeds, no? So yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk. My question is more about the bottom-up processes that also influence changes in these agri-food systems. I mean, I understand that indigenous food systems are generally more labor-intensive, for example. And the part of India where I work, families are getting smaller. People are migrating out. The newer generation spends more time, say, pursuing education, and they cannot participate in, household farming work. And those are also driving the choice that people make of what to grow, for how long, etc. So I am interested in such processes from rural areas of Mexico. And could you shed some light on?
It's a big problem, no? Because of course, keeping the agrobiodiversity is labor intensity.
Yes.
And then who will be doing it, if the young generation is migrating more and more, or to the cities, or in the case of Mexico, to the United States, no? What we have been working with young people, they are telling us it is, if I would be making a good business out of it, I will be staying. I prefer to stay in Mexico. I prefer to work in Mexico. But if I am going to be as poor as my parents, then no. So then it is more at the political level of how to really incentivize much more the local agrobiodiversity, and to have programs that will be more in the agricultural of agrobiodiversity than of the monoculture. So there are some experiences that are quite near from Mexico City, that they are cultivating a lot of maize landraces, and now they are producing the tortillas. There will be the blue and the green and the pink one, and then they can have a very good market, because the urban population is wanting all these type of different maize tortillas, and then they are buying it even triple than the normal price of it. But here also it is a problem, because then it will be like the maize land races, there will be more for the elites than for the poor people. So it is very contradictory there, because the farmers, they are saying, yes, it is favoring us, because then we can sell our pink production or black production or blue production to the urban market in Mexico City of the tortillas. But of course, the consumers are not the poor people. The consumers are the elite. So I think that we have to work very much on that, because if not, of course, then there will be much and more gaps of the food quality and the food injustice, that then we will be finding that, rich people will be having the best of the maize, and so it has to be work on that, in the sense to have like the inputs of labor and to be paid and to be, because then, for example, those families that is in a region, all the young people are staying there, because then they are managing, and then they are making the web page of their products, and then these. So young people are staying there because it's a business, But then it is reduce in the sense for certain consumers, no? Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the talk. It was really insightful. Following up to Iravati's question about migration from rural to urban areas, and there was this one graph where you showed that the indigenous population are the highest among the food poverty
Mhm.
sector. So is it also more linked to the loss in traditional knowledge of indigenous crops and food systems and deforestation? Because that's a trend I think that's happening only in India as well, as you mentioned, that young people are not as involved in traditional agricultural practices. So
Mhm.
is also that one of the reasons for food poverty over there?
Yes, and in the sense that they haven't also like be in other type of having other type of possibilities, no? And we see very big differences. So, for example, in Oaxaca, also there is a market for traditional maize, landraces, and traditional tortillas, and it has been growing a lot in the gourmetization of the Mexican food. So there you can see that young people that they start to be mixing up, and then the knowledge, of course, it is like re-elaborated, no, but always speaking in with the mothers, no, in the sense of how do you do it? I will change it. I will make this. I will add that. I will add nopal. I will add opuntia, no. So they are making innovations, and so the knowledge is there and could be picked. But in the most poor parts, no, where there is like an abandonment of their own agriculture, then yeah, there is a loss of knowledge. There is, and it's like a not only economical poverty, but it is a cultural poverty, no, in the sense of loss of their their identity and their love for their own territory. And then you have then high deforestation rates, or the companies come and then say, okay, I buy you this with a very low price, and they will sell it, no? Mhm.
Thank you.
So thanks, Elena. I had a question about the graph that you showed regarding the increased imports of corn
Mhm.
into Mexico, right?
Mhm.
So Mexico is the origin of corn,
Mhm.
and of course, there's been a growing population, so you have to feed more people. So you might say you might need more corn, but
Mhm.
do you think it's primarily because of the population growth that there is the increased import, or is it because Mexican land has been diverted to grazing and producing beef and selling beef to? I mean, so is it a land use problem, or is it really a production of corn problem?
Mhm. I think it's both, but more mainly is the land use, how it is more to grazing, no, or pasture lands. And also what afterwards that we discussed, it was that these imports of maize are the yellow maize that go for feeding the cattle. No, we are self-sufficient in the white maize that it's for people consumption, but for all the animal feed, then we have to import the this type of yellow maize that it's cultivated in the US, no? Mhm. Mhm.
A larger question I had was, you've now spent about 6 months in India.
Mhm.
So, and you've also not just spent them in Delhi, but you've gone out and talked to farmers in Andhra Pradesh and a variety of other places. In terms of looking at agri-food systems, what would you say is the biggest difference in the Indian? I mean, I think we are also struggling with similar issues in many ways: loss of agrobiodiversity, chemical intensification, green revolution, and its long-term impacts.
Mhm.
In that sense, they are very similar. But what would you say is one or two of the biggest differences between Mexico and India?
Mhm. That's a good question. Um, what I found in the experiences that I visited, it was a lot of the sense of collectivity here. And that was so important for me to see that the farmers were very much in seed collectives, no, or collectivities that they will be saying, yeah, it's we are having no this pool of seeds, and then we are sharing, and we are selling it in a very low price. And I was very much surprised that they were like self-organized, and they were very having much this collective sense. But I don't know if it was because they were working with NGOs and then they were influenced very much by these NGOs, no? Because of course in Mexico also you find these type of farmers when they are working with an NGO and that have been having like the support and like the communication information also, no? So I was asking the NGOs, how did you create this or how did you do it, no? And of course it is after 15, 20 years of work, no, with them, but they are influenced by the NGOs, no? And I think it's very important because then afterwards I visited some farmers that they were not working with any NGO, and they were very individual, no? They were saying, oh, no, it's my part, my farm, my seeds, okay. So then I thought perhaps it's like in Mexico, so it's only by the influence of the NGOs. But for me, it was at the beginning very astonishing, this sense of collectivity that I find it much more than in Mexico. Still, even if they are influenced by the NGOs, I think that they have had this sense of the collectivity much more like. And also about food, I think that here it is having much more value to continue with the food traditions, no, of the dishes, of how to prepare them, of the ingredients, and not to replacing them by ultra processed food. Although coming from my place where I'm staying to here, I only pass like 12 little stores that they sell only ultra processed food. And okay, what they are selling here, but I don't know. But what I have seen it is that that the farmers are not drinking Coca-Cola, no, and not consuming, not yet. Well, but that's very important, no?
Yeah, thank you for your interesting talk. I would like to know, in context of the presence of so many multinational companies like Monsanto, Syngenta, what is the difference between the, in general, cost of production of the food grains and agriculture produce and market price? I'm asking because what we see in India, there's a mismatch between production and market price. Market price is controlled by the government, even after liberalization, by various means. And therefore, it leads to the agriculture distress. And in some region, resulting into farmer suicide. So I would like to know more about this cost of production and market price, and whether the farmers are really gaining through the agriculture, their next generation wants to be in agriculture, and these issues.
Yeah, for example, in all the traditional maize production or the milpas production, they have higher costs than the prices themselves, no? And in Mexico, before, there was not this maintained price as you have here. I don't know from when it was installed here. In Mexico, it was like in the 70s, 80s, there was there. But after the structural adjustment programs, we call it guarantee prices, no? That they could have like a price that would be guaranteed by the state. But after the 80s, there was the market that was deciding the prices, and it was more like the market stock of Chicago deciding the price of maize, for example, no? So definitely the cost of productions were higher than the prices. So that is why also many farmers were saying it is cheaper to buy it in the store than to produce it myself, no? Only because I like very much my variety, I will do it. But if not, no, I prefer to go because it will be cheaper. But of course, what we have and we import from the United States is this yellow variety that peasants don't like very much to eat and to eat it as tortillas, no? So they prefer always to have their own production, even though it is in a small proportion, because the flavor is and the consistency is very, very different from the imported one from the States. But if not, no, if it wouldn't be this cultural aspect, I think that we will be importing more also the white maize from the States, no? So it has been now in this government, there was this guarantee price, but it didn't function because it was too low. And also because the requirements to go to these places and to take your production was, you have to transport it. You have to put it in some special bags. You have to sew, so it was so complicated that of course the peasants said, no, No, I prefer not to have like 20 cents more because it's so complicated in that way. No, so then it was not really working at all. These guarantee prices by the state, given by the state. No.
So my next question would be, do the small and marginal farmers earn enough to sustain themselves?
Well, it's because the bigger farmers, yeah, they have access to, 700 hectares, 1,000 hectares. So even, no, if per kilo will be a small percentage of gaining, no, it will be in the 1,000 hectares. Of course, you have a lot of money.
What about the
accumulated
small?
money.
What is the average size, farm size for a small and marginal farmer?
It will be 2 hectares. Yeah.
So what about them?
2 hectares. Yeah, they are struggling, no, because of the prices and because of the erosion and because of the droughts. So they are struggling very much, and they have low yields, no, in one sense, and very high cost inputs, no. So if they are paying their fertilizers, if they are paying herbicides, then it will be, no. Sometimes they say it is more expensive to really be producing my maize than to be buying the maize, no. So the margins of really, yeah, winning or gains, no, they are very, very low among the small producers, no. So that is why they are seeing a market niche, no, in the sense of these varieties that are being considered by the urban elite class in Mexico City, for example, and they are paying more, no, even 4 times more the kilo, no, because of the variety itself. Then they see, yeah, I will maintain my black bean, my black maize. I will maintain the blue one, the red one, no, because now I have a market that it is paying me, no, 3 times more, 4 times more, no. So now they see it as a market niche, no. Mhm.
Elena, I was looking at your presentation and thinking if I replace the word Mexico with India, it's very, very similar as to what you're saying.
Mhm.
And so I was very glad when Sharad asked the question, what's the difference?
Mhm.
I wanted to interject at that point that you may have seen an NGOization of, the seed collectives.
Mhm.
But from what my work has been, and I have been seeing cooperatives, I have found we have, for example, a very huge network in India called and Holistic Agriculture in India.
Mhm.
These are networks of even small, medium-sized farmers who are interested in, bucking the trend.
Mhm.
And we are at a moment because things are so clever. The MNCs are so clever, like the Monsanto thing. That earlier we used to say, why are these ideas not coming in the mainstream? Now there's a lot of discussion of if we do come in the mainstream, it very quickly gets co-opted.
Mhm.
So these are the kind of trends that are happening, especially post-COVID.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of discussions and dialogues around this as well.
Mhm.
But there is a very robust, for example, Bangalore has a very robust
Mhm.
and Karnataka especially. And there is a lot of energy in these groups,
Mhm.
and not enough has been written about them.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when I was arriving, there was this seed conference, no, organized by Wasan, and I was so astonished that they were 400, farmers, NGOs, and they were all discussing. I said, "Wow, I wouldn't have it that in Mexico, that there are so many farmers that were participating, and yeah, in a very collective sense, no." And I think that was very important for me. It was like, wow. Mhm.
Okay, I think we are at 5 o'clock, so we'll close the formal part of this seminar. I just want to thank Elena again
Yeah.
very much for not only taking the time to give this seminar, but for being here with Atri and sharing her knowledge, which is, as you can see, what we saw today, just the tip of the iceberg. And I hope we can continue to interact with you over the next few weeks.
Yeah, of course.
And we also wish you a very engrossing stay in Bangalore for the
Thank
next
you.
few weeks.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.